Okay, here's a second example of the game, and kind of the difficulty of which you can expect me to ask on the test. This one you'll notice is one of the ones that is worth 8 points. So this one is a little more difficult, okay? Nevertheless, you should be able to find the solution to this particular game. Okay, let's take a look at it first of all from Row's perspective, okay? Notice that there's no dominance on this table for Row. R2 for Row pays off better than C1 in C1 than R1 does, but R1 pays off better in C2 than R2 does. Similarly, R3 pays off better than C1 than R1 in C1. They pay off the same here, but R1 pays off better than R3 in C3. And finally, R2 pays off better than R3 in C1, but R3 pays off better than R2 in C2. So there's no dominance whatsoever for Row in this particular game. So dominance reasoning will not help Row find a solution to this game. But look at it from Colin's perspective. Again, dominance reasoning will lead you to see that C2 for Col weakly dominates C1. It pays off the same in R1, -2, -2, and it pays off better. -1 as opposed to -7 in R2, and -2 as opposed to -4 in R2, in R1, and in R3. So C2 dominates weakly C1. There's no dominance, and then also C2 dominates strictly C3. -2 as opposed to -4, -1 as opposed to -5, -2 as opposed to -3. So C2 dominates C3. Now there's no dominance between C2 and C4. -2 as opposed to -5, -1 as opposed to -3, but -1 as opposed to -2. But knowing that C2 dominates C1 and C3, we know that Colin is not going to play either of those two strategies. So by dominance reasoning from Colin's perspective, the board reduces to this particular configuration. Now look at it again from Row's perspective. Okay? Look, for example, at R1 and R2. R1 pays off better than R2 in C2, and R1 pays off better than C2 than R2 in C4. So now, with those other two rows eliminated, R1 dominates R2. So we know that Row is not going to play R2. We can eliminate it. Okay? And now you can also look at it from this perspective, right? R1 pays off 2 as opposed to 2 in C2, and 5 as opposed to 1 in C4. So now also Row 1 dominates weakly Row 3. And so we're left with Row playing R1 once we get the dominance removed from Colin. And so we know, therefore, Col will play C2 to minimize his or her losses. And so we have the solution to the game using iterated dominance reasoning, R1, C2, and the value of the game equals 2 for Row. And we'll come back in just a minute and we'll look at this game from a slightly different perspective using Nash equilibrium.